We've got a swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in and tell us, what city are you watching from? It was late at night. The city was veiled in a thick mist of drizzle, tiny drops pattering steadily against the rusted tin awning, ticking like the weary hands of a clock. In a shabby third-floor apartment, the desk lamp cast its dim glow over Sophia's gaunt face. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her hair tied up hastily, a faded cardigan draped over her shoulders. For 3 nights straight, she had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, Emma's raspy cough yanked her awake. In the small bedroom, Emma lay curled up, her tiny body shivering with fever. She was only 4 years old. Her usually bright eyes were now tightly shut, her lashes damp with sweat. The worn-out stuffed bunny, Mr. Flopsy, was clutched in her little arms. The humidifier hummed, blowing warm mist into the air, but it couldn't mask the child's wheezing breaths. Sophia sat at the table, staring at the stack of medical files. The bold red letters cut like knives. Severe aplastic anemia, urgent bone marrow transplant needed. Below, the doctor's note read, "The hospital is overloaded. Surgery must wait to be scheduled." She bit her lip, her eyes stinging. With every passing day, Emma grew weaker, while the waiting list stretched endlessly. She remembered yesterday's call with Mike, her ex-husband, Emma's father. His voice had been sweet yet laced with indifference. "I know someone at the hospital. I can get Emma pushed up the list, but you'll need to put down a deposit first. Just about $2,500, that's nothing. For our daughter, you can manage that, right?" Sophia had long known Mike was no longer reliable, but in her desperation, she still clung to the faintest shred of hope. Emma was her everything. If there was even the slightest chance to save her child, she had to try. She unlocked her phone, her fingers trembling as she typed, "Mike, you promised to send the support money this week. I already submitted Emma's file, and we're waiting for surgery. That deposit for earlier surgery you mentioned, how far have your connections gotten with that? Emma's had a fever for 3 days now. Stop staying silent." Sophia reread the message, every word pressing down on her chest like a stone. She hit send, exhaled shakily, and glanced toward Emma's room. The little girl shifted, coughed a few times, then drifted back into sleep. The sudden chime of a text nearly made Sophia jump. Her heart pounded. Mike was replying unusually fast. She opened it. "Are you Sophia Ellis?" 4 words, cold. No greeting, no familiar evasions of Mike. Sophia frowned, checked the number. It wasn't Mike's. It was an unfamiliar string of digits. "Oh no," she whispered, her hands shaking as she typed. "Sorry, wrong number. Please ignore." She quickly exited the screen, reopened the chat with Mike, ready to type, "Did you change your number?" But before she could hit send, the phone vibrated again. Another message from an unknown number. "Your daughter has had a fever for 3 days. Sophia froze, her whole body turning cold. No. How could a stranger know that? She instinctively glanced toward Emma's room. The child still lay there, her cheeks flushed red, her curly hair damp with sweat. Goosebumps prickled across Sophia's skin. Her fingers fumbled across the screen. "Who are you? How do you know this?" No reply came right away. A heavy silence fell over the apartment. Sophia stood, moved to the window, and cautiously pulled the curtain aside. The sidewalk below glistened under pale yellow streetlights. Normally, this hour saw only a few old cars parked along the curb. But tonight, she counted 2 black SUVs parked right in front of the building. Their headlights were off, only the faint glow of the dashboards lit within. She blinked, forcing herself to believe. Probably just people grabbing a late meal. But then, through the rain and low hum of engines, a 3rd SUV glided silently into place, tucking beside the others. Then a 4th, then a 5th. Within minutes, the quiet street had turned into a silent encirclement. Sophia swallowed hard, rushed back to lock the door, pulling the chain across. The icy metal against her palm made her heart race even more. Her phone lit up again. A new message. "Don't call the police. Open up. We need to talk about Michael Donovan." Sophia's breath caught. Michael Donovan. Mike's full name. Her chest lurched, her knees giving way into the chair. What had he dragged her into? The elevator chimed at the end of the hall. Then came footsteps, measured, heavy, steady like drum beats. They stopped right outside her door. 3 knocks. Deep, firm. Thud, thud, thud. Sophia pressed her eye to the peephole. A tall man in a dark coat stood upright. His face was sharp and cold under the hallway light, his eyes deep and impenetrable. Behind him stood another broad man, hands clasped in front, gaze alert. The phone vibrated once more. The message appeared. Adrian Castelli, open up. Sophia reeled. The name she had only ever heard whispered like a phantom of the city. A ruthless billionaire, notorious in the shadowy world of underground finance. A man the press dared only half report, half speculate about. And now he stood at her door, his fleet of black cars surrounding the block. Her throat went dry. Her trembling hand hovered over the lock. Behind her, Emma's frail cough cut through the terror. We need to talk about Michael Donovan. The man's low voice rumbled through the crack of the door, cold, commanding. Sophia bit her lip, her fingers clutching the chain. Though her whole body shook, she knew. From this moment on, her life had taken a turn she could never undo. Sophia was nearly dragged out of the apartment. 2 tall men in black suits flanked her. One scooped Emma up as easily as if she were a doll. The other gripped Sophia's arm in an iron hold. Her protests, her screams, were swallowed by the night rain and the roar of SUV engines on the street below. Put me down! You have no right to take her anywhere. Sophia's voice was hoarse from shouting, her body thrashing against the steel-like grip. Emma whimpered weakly in the stranger's arms, her feverish eyes half closed like a flickering candle about to die out, plunging Sophia into raw panic. The car door slammed shut, sealing off the outside world. Inside the spacious SUV, dim light revealed Adrian Castelli's face. He sat upright, dark coat buttoned, expression unreadable, his deep eyes cutting into her like a blade. What do you want? Sophia panted, clutching Emma tightly as the guard set the child back into her arms. If this is about Mike, I have nothing to do with him anymore. We're divorced. I just want to take care of my daughter. Adrian tilted his head, his low voice deliberate, every word measured. Exactly because you were once his wife, and because he's still in contact with you. Don't deny it. Sophia's throat closed. She remembered the message she'd sent just minutes ago, asking about the deposit contract. But she refused to let Adrian corner her with this twisted logic. Mike is nothing but irresponsible. He has nothing to do with me anymore. I only messaged because Emma needs treatment. I don't know anything about what he does. The air in the SUV thickened. Adrian leaned an elbow on his knee, eyes locked on her, stripping her words bare. Then he spoke slowly. Michael Donovan used to be under me. He betrayed me, stole classified data from a multi-billion-dollar project, and now he plans to sell it to foreign powers. That's not just betraying me, it's betraying this entire country. Sophia's eyes widened, her heart pounding. The words sounded like something from a crime thriller, utterly foreign to her ordinary life. You expect me to believe this scare story? She snapped, though her voice trembled. You just want to make me and my daughter pawns in your game. I don't know anything about your billion-dollar project. All I want is for my daughter to live. Adrian didn't bristle. He raised a hand. One guard opened the leather case beside him, pulling out several files. Adrian chose one, set it on the small table between them, and slid it toward her. You asked him about a hospital bed deposit. This is what he bragged to you about, isn't it? Sophia glanced down. Before her lay a crude printout, the hospital's seal forged at the top, titled Treatment Bed Reservation Contract. Amount $2,500. At the bottom, a scrawled signature she didn't recognize, not matching any doctor she'd met. Clipped inside was a transcript of a recording. Mike's voice sneering to someone. She still has a bit saved for Emma. I'll bleed her dry, then disappear. You get the escape route ready. Sophia's lips trembled. Her eyes darted back and forth across the page, praying she'd misread. But everything was stark, merciless. No, this can't be. Her throat tightened. He said he'd make sure Emma got her surgery sooner. He said... Her voice broke, but Adrian cut her off, words sharp and certain. He planned to use your desperation to drain the last dollar from you, then vanish, leaving you and that child to die waiting in a hospital. Tears burst from Sophia's eyes. The world collapsed around her. The fragile hope she had clung to shattered into shards. Mike wasn't just a man who abandoned his wife and child. He had sought to exploit Emma's illness to deceive her. Sophia clutched Emma tighter, sobbing. He really meant to use his own daughter as a way to escape? Adrian met her gaze. He didn't nod. He didn't shake his head. But the silence itself was answer enough. In that instant, fury surged inside Sophia, burning hotter than fear. She wiped her tears, lifted her face toward Adrian, her voice rough but steady. Fine. I'll cooperate, if it helps you catch Mike. Adrian raised a brow, his eyes flashing sharp as a blade striking true. Good. You finally understand. Sophia bit her lip, then added, each word clear and firm. But I have one condition. You help Emma. I don't care about myself. I just need her treated. If not, I'd rather die than follow your plan. For a long moment, the SUV was silent. The engine rumbled, and rain tapped against the windows. Adrian studied her intently, weighing every word, every breath. Then he gave a slight nod, his voice low and resolute. Agreed. I'll bring in the best doctors for Emma. From now on, her life is in my hands. Sophia sat still, clutching Emma, feeling the child's trembling ease as the medicine took hold. She could hardly believe she had just agreed to cooperate with a man as dangerous as Adrian Castelli. But in the shadow of betrayal, in the depths of despair, she had seized the only thread left to save her child. That night, the SUV sped toward Adrian's estate, carrying Sophia and Emma into an inescapable whirlpool, where their fate would be changed forever. The iron gate swung open as if it breathed. Dark pines loomed on both sides of the gravel drive, the floodlights casting long golden streaks across the damp ground. The SUV rolled into a wide courtyard, sending a thin mist into the cold night air. Sophia clutched Emma closer, feeling her daughter's erratic heartbeat beneath the thin sweater. When the door opened, the scent of bergamot and warm wood rushed in, a fragrance worlds away from the menthol, talc, and disinfectant that had clung to Sophia's life. Inside the main doors was a gleaming stone foyer, high ceilings hung with glass chandeliers, carpets thick enough to swallow sound. A silver-haired woman, trim in a minimalist dark dress, stepped forward. Her black eyes were sharp but not unkind. Welcome, I'm Rosa. The room is ready for you and your daughter. Sophia froze at the threshold, like a rain-soaked stray cat carried into a mansion. She turned, searching for Adrian. He stood at the edge of the hall, slipping off leather gloves, his long coat draped at his elbow. The light struck his cheek, carving a shadow sharp as charcoal. Upstairs, Adrian said flatly. The doctor will arrive in 15 minutes. You said you would, Sophia began, then bit it back. She refused to hear herself beg. I need to see her credentials. Specialty license. No one touches my daughter unless... She's a pediatric hematologist at St. Augustine's, Adrian cut in, eyes never leaving her face. Dr. Eliza Hale. She'll determine the treatment plan tonight. All costs are mine. Sophia didn't say, thank you. She only nodded tightly, lips pressed, and followed Rosa down a long hallway into the East Suite. An entire wing converted into a home medical ward. The soundproof glass door sealed behind them, and the air changed. Cool, dry, and laced with the scent of new plastic and sterilizer. A hospital bed lay ready with white linens. A HEPA filter hummed, and monitors and an SpO2 screen waited at the headboard. A tidy med cart with sterile trays stood beside a compact medical fridge. A plush armchair for the caregiver, a high-grade humidifier, and, unexpectedly, a corner filled with toys, fresh crayons, wooden blocks, a soft nightlight shaped like a moon. Sophia stood at the doorway, arms tight around Emma. No one separates me from her, she said, voice thin but steel. No one. Rosa smiled gently, gesturing to the armchair. You'll sit right beside her. If you need anything, press this bell. I'll come. Adrian signaled. A technician carried in a small case. 10 minutes, he said. I'm stripping out everything that could turn your phone into a shackle. They removed Sophia's SIM card, sliding it into a sleek black phone. The screen lit up with the same number. From now on, you use this only with Mike, Adrian instructed. Every call, every message will be mirrored in real time to the security room, unread unless necessary. I want my phone, Sophia said, and I want to know where it will be. Adrian gestured. Anton, the broad guard, sealed her old phone into a clear plastic box, labeled and locked before her eyes. My secure storage, Adrian said. Try to use it again now, and you'll only drag yourself and Emma into danger. This, his fingertip tapped the new device, is for contacting Mike only. Sophia wanted to argue, but Emma's cough cut through the air. The child burned in her arms, sweat shining on her temple. The door opened. A blonde woman in a white coat entered, accompanied by a nurse. Dr. Hale, she introduced herself, flashing credentials and a hospital ID. I've spoken with Emma's physician and reviewed her full file. Let's begin. Sophia nodded quickly. The doctor knelt at eye level with Emma, her voice soft as cotton. Hello, princess. I'm Dr. Eliza. I'm just going to listen to your chest, all right? Emma barely stirred, too weak to protest. Sophia lay her on the bed, holding her hand. The SpO2 monitor beeped as the clip fastened to the tiny finger. Dr. Hale listened, palpated the nodes, checked the membranes, inquired about fevers, medications, meals, and urination. Any gum bleeding? Bruises? The questions rolled out, ones Sophia could answer by heart. We'll repeat CBC, reticulocyte, CRP, blood typing, and do rapid PCR to rule out infection, Dr. Hale said firmly. I secured an early slot at St. Augustine tomorrow to reprioritize her case. Tonight, we'll follow proper protocol for fever reduction, including mild fluids and IV antibiotics if needed. I've also opened her file with the marrow bank. No promises yet, only the first step. All costs, covered by Mr. Castelli. The name rang clear in the sterile room. Sophia turned toward Adrian. He leaned against the doorframe, hands in his pockets, eyes on the monitor's steady beep, present but unreadable. The nurse moved deftly, slipping a tiny IV into Emma's hand. The girl whimpered, eyes wet. Sophia squeezed her fingers, murmuring, just a little pinch. Then you'll have your moon lamp shining, okay? Emma's gaze flicked to the glowing nightlight, then the new crayons. She nodded faintly. Dr. Hale smiled. Brave girl. When the needle slid out, Sophia exhaled a breath she hadn't known she was holding. She turned and found Adrian watching, not scrutinizing, not pitying, simply witnessing. She hated that it eased her loneliness. Something to eat? Rosa asked, placing chicken soup and ginger tea on the side table. Light, so it won't upset your stomach. Sophia almost refused. She hadn't swallowed food since the afternoon, but the scent made her realize how hollow she felt. Thank you, she whispered, tasting half a ladle, eyes stinging with heat. As the doctor stepped out to call and the nurse charted, Adrian spoke, his voice low, pitched not to disturb Emma, but clear to Sophia. I'm doing my part of the bargain. You'll do yours. He motioned to Anton, who handed her a thin envelope. Inside were printouts of messages, bank transfers, and photos of forged hospital paperwork. Tomorrow you'll send him exactly the words I give you. Nothing more, nothing less. We need him to surface. Sophia set down her spoon and wiped her mouth. She was too drained to fake defiance. I have conditions, she said, meeting his eyes. 1, I don't leave Emma. 2, I can stop if I feel she's unsafe. We agree on a code word. 3, you keep your promise about the costs in the hospital bed. No delays, no later. I'm done with that word. The corner of Adrian's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, more like filing a clause into memory. 1, agreed. 2, the code word is lights out. Say it once, and the plan halts. 3, I never use the word later. He paused, correcting himself. I don't postpone. His tone didn't shift, yet Sophia, for reasons she couldn't name, believed him. Anton returned to report the perimeter secure. Gate guards, scanners, and interior patrols. No one enters without me, he said, glancing kindly at Emma, as if she alone could command his gentleness. Adrian pushed off the frame. See the rest, he said. It sounded like an order. But then he added quietly, if you want. a courtesy rare from a man who needed no permission. Sophia hesitated, looking at Emma. The child slept more evenly now, her breathing steadier with medication and mist. The nurse watched the monitor. 5 minutes, Sophia said, rising. They toured a side hall, a small room for relatives, a wardrobe filled with untouched children's pajamas, drawers stocked with soft towels, and a spotless bathroom lined with sanitizer and gloves. At the end, glass doors opened to a small garden. Tonight, only shadows, but by day, Sophia imagined Emma could sit in sunlight, free of hospital antiseptic. This room, Adrian said, opening a dark-paneled study, is for work. You don't need to enter. His voice wasn't threatening, but the boundary was clear. Sophia nodded. She had no desire for his secrets. Back at the East Suite, they paused at the doorway. Inside, Emma shifted, turning toward the moon lamp. The golden glow brushed her curls, damp against her forehead. Her breathing evened, and the monitor beeped steadily. Sophia felt her shoulders drop, unaware how long they'd been braced. One more thing, Adrian said, recalling the final clause. Money. You will not owe me. This is my security expense. No papers binding you to me. Only one obligation. Cooperation. Sophia stared, surprised by the clarity of the words. No debt trap. No charity to be thrown back later. Just terms, plain and sharp. Fine, she said. I'll cooperate. Adrian dipped his head slightly, sealing the agreement as if stamping it. Rest, he said, eyes flicking to Emma. Tomorrow morning, the doctor will take you both to the hospital. Before that, you'll message Michael. Sophia returned, pulled a chair beside the bed, and switched on her small lamp. She drew from her pocket the wrinkled notebook, where she logged Emma's meds and little notes. She added one line, first night in a stranger's house. Her breathing is steadier. Ink bled into paper, unblurred. When she looked up, Adrian was still in the doorway. His shadow stretched across the carpet, half in light, half in dark. In that silhouette, she saw the man described as cold, ruthless, control, calculation, a voice coated in ice. But she also saw something else. He kept his word. Everything he had said in the car was taking shape. The doctor arrived, the equipment was ready, security was in place, and costs had been handled. Sleep, Adrian said. Not sleep well. That word didn't exist in his dictionary. Then he vanished into the hall, like a shadow departing on cue. Sophia leaned back, one hand on Emma's soft belly, the other tracing the blanket's edge. She remained wary. The world outside belonged to men like Adrian and Mike, a world she had never wanted to enter. But here at the storm's eye, her daughter was breathing easier. She set the new phone into its charger, watching it lie dormant like a sleeping shark, knowing that tomorrow it would become bait to draw Mike out of hiding. For you, she whispered, pressing her lips to Emma's damp curls. Every dangerous agreement in this world. I'll sign. The first days in the Castelli estate passed like a strange dream. Not a gentle dream, but a reality both suffocating and far removed from Sophia's life of scarcity. In the mornings, sunlight streamed through enormous glass windows, flooding the room where Emma lay. The little girl was checked daily by a private doctor for temperature, blood pressure, and routine blood draws. A gentle nurse stayed by her side, carefully measuring each dose of medicine and each glass of milk. Emma was cared for like a princess in the finest private hospital, except the setting was a mansion. Sophia sat by her daughter's bed, eyes tracking the nurse's every move, torn between gratitude and unease. Everything was too perfect. The latest medication, advanced equipment, even a high-end humidifier she'd never dreamed Emma would use. But Sophia never forgot whose hand had provided all this. Adrian Castelli, the man who had torn her and her child out of their tiny apartment just nights ago. In her mind, she still called him by one name, the cold-blooded kingpin. On the second day, while Sophia was folding Emma's blanket, the door swung open. Adrian entered without knocking. He carried a large bag and set it in the corner. Toys, he said curtly. Sophia stiffened. I don't want Emma spoiled. She needs rest, not... She didn't finish. Emma's eyes fluttered open, glancing at the bag with curiosity. Toys? Her voice was raspy from illness, but her eyes lit up. Adrian took the seat beside the bed and unzipped the bag. Inside were a box of colorful Legos, a pack of crayons, and several brand new stuffed animals. Emma struggled to her feet, her face glowing. "Want to try?" Adrian asked, his tone still low and dry. Sophia meant to protest, but Emma was already nodding eagerly. "Yes." Adrian picked up the Lego box, laying the pieces out on the table. His large hands, fingers accustomed to contracts and power, fumbled with the tiny plastic bricks. He turned them this way and that, trying to fit two together, but got it wrong. Emma burst into giggles, coughing between laughs, her eyes sparkling. "You did it wrong! It goes like this." She reached out, showing him step by step. Sophia sat still, watching despite herself. For a fleeting moment, Adrian wasn't the terrifying man who had surrounded her home with SUVs in the rain. He was just an awkward man trying to make a sick child smile. On the third day by afternoon, Emma was strong enough to laugh out loud when Adrian handed her a crayon drawing of a lopsided cat. "That's a cat?" she giggled, clutching her belly. "It looks like a dragon." Adrian raised a brow, tilting his head slightly, a rare glint flashing in his blue eyes. "A dragon works. Dragons breathe fire. Cats don't." Standing nearby, Sophia felt her lips curve before she caught herself. The realization unsettled her. How could she smile at him? The man who had forced her into this trap, turned her into bait in his hunt. She turned away quickly, her chest tightening. Yet the image lingered. Adrian sitting stiffly, fingers smudged with crayon wax, listening to Emma's delighted laughter. That night, after Emma had drifted to sleep, Sophia sat writing in her small notebook beside the bed. She watched her daughter's steady breathing, her peaceful face. In the soft dark, Adrian's figure rose in her mind unbidden. He was still Adrian Castelli, the cold, powerful, dangerous man. But beneath the ice, Sophia had glimpsed something warm, a shard of humanity she didn't dare believe was real. Her head sank back against the chair, her eyes blurred with tears. Inside her, a strange feeling stirred, half fear, half reluctance to let go. To Emma, he wasn't the kingpin. He was Uncle Adrian who draws dragons. And to Sophia, the conflict had only just begun. The rain returned after a gray day. Drops tapped steadily against the glass roof of the east corridor, drumming like invisible fingers. Wind swept through the trees, carrying the scent of wet leaves and earth. Sophia dozed off in the armchair beside Emma's bed, her medication log slipping onto her lap. She startled awake at the soft sound of a door opening and closing at the far end of the hall. Emma still slept peacefully, her breast steady and warm. Sophia pulled the blanket over her daughter's shoulders, then quietly stepped out into the corridor. Golden sconces lit her way past abstract paintings and around a corner that opened into a side hall. There, candlelight. Sophia froze behind a marble column. Adrian sat alone at a low wooden table. On it stood a framed portrait of a woman, gentle brown eyes, a kind smile, black hair tied back. Before the portrait rested a vase of white flowers and a half-burnt candle. Beside it, a glass of amber liquor caught the light. Adrian wore no jacket, only a black shirt with sleeves rolled up, the veins in his wrists taut. His eyes were rimmed red, a weary redness he couldn't hide. Sophia stopped in her tracks. The cold-blooded kingpin, the man who passed the East Suite every night without a word, now sat motionless before a memorial. She meant to retreat, to leave him his private grief, but the chair scraped faintly. Adrian turned and caught her in the shadows. "Sorry," Sophia whispered, fingers whirring the hem of her sweater. "I didn't mean to intrude." His eyes lingered on her, stripped of their usual chill, shadowed instead by fatigue and a flicker of something softer. He gestured toward the seat across from him. "Sit, if you don't mind the smell of whiskey." Sophia crossed over, careful to leave space between them and the table. Her eyes fell on the portrait. "Julia," Adrian said quietly. "My wife." Sophia nodded, not pressing further. He rolled the glass between his fingers, staring into its rippling surface as if answers lived there. In the hush of rain, his voice came, each sentence short, sharp, cut like with a knife. "It was raining that day, too. I met with someone, once a brother." He paused as if tasting bitterness on the words. on a rooftop garage to close a deal. I thought the embrace before he got in his car was genuine. Turned out it was the signal for a shooter 3 levels down. He stopped. Candlelight flared in his eyes. Sophia waited, silent. Julia came with me that night, he continued, lower still. She hated those meetings. But before I left, she looped a scarf around my neck and said, "Don't catch a chill." I laughed. Then the first bullet tore through. Glass. Sirens. I don't remember much. Just her hand pushing me against the wall. The second shot hit her. Square on. Sophia's fingers clenched on her lap. Her back felt cold despite the warm room. The police arrived in time to collect the wrecked car. To look me in the eyes and ask questions they already knew the answers to. But Julia, he drew a long breath, jaw tight. She never made it to surgery. Only the rain against the glass and the crackle of the candle remained. Sophia gazed at the smiling woman in the frame. She understood then why parts of this house gleamed too perfectly, ordered to a fault. People cleaned that way when they were paying debt to an absence. After that, Adrian said, I learned 2 things. 1, loyalty can be nothing more than wet paper. 2, a soft spot can be used like a map. I don't have the luxury of learning those lessons twice. Sophia didn't say I'm sorry. The words felt empty. Instead, she looked at his hands that signed billion-dollar deals, that rolled whiskey just so, that had fumbled with a Lego piece for a sick child. She remembered him sketching that crooked cat to make Emma laugh. Something inside this man had shattered long ago. You probably think I'm just a kidnapper, Adrian said, a crooked smile slicing his face. And you're right. I took you and your child without asking, but I won't let a child be Michael's hostage. I won't let him use you to vanish. Sophia swallowed the sudden salt in her throat. You don't need to say that to earn my gratitude, she replied evenly. I agreed to cooperate because of Emma. Because I had no other choice. Her eyes flicked to Julia's photo, then softened. I once had a home, too small, but mine. Mike taught me how to go broke, how to break promises, and how to apologize with words only. I thought maybe he'd do one decent thing for his daughter, at least call, ask, how is she? But no, he just wanted the last of my money under the name of a hospital deposit. Emma's the only thing keeping me alive. If not for her, I'd have dissolved one night between shifts. Her eyes stung. She let out a dry laugh, bitter, awkward amid the candles. Sounds like whining. Sorry, I hate playing the victim. You're not a victim, Adrian said firmly. You're someone still standing when everything else collapses. Then softer, words rarely used. I respect that. Sophia blinked, startled, by the praise, by the way he said it. In the quiet, the sharp edges of his presence seemed less cutting. Why do you still light the candle? She asked, nodding toward the portrait. You said soft spots are maps. This flame, it's a map too. Adrian's mouth curved faintly. Yes, I light it for me, to remember what I lost, not to show anyone where I'm weak. They sat in weighted silence. Rain streaked long trails across the glass like cold fingers writing. Sophia leaned back, exhaling slowly. For the first time since being brought here, her chest didn't feel like it would burst. Tomorrow Emma will run more tests, Adrian said at last. Dr. Hale thinks we can move the consult up to Thursday. I secured a slot at the transplant center. No overpromises, but, he paused, measuring his words, I'll take it as far as it can go. Sophia met his eyes and nodded. I know. You have a strange way of keeping promises. Quiet, but real. He looked back at Julia's portrait. Julia hated noise, he murmured to the candle. She used to say, loud sounds drown out your heartbeat. Your heartbeat, Sophia echoed, feeling the words press against something behind her ribs. She thought of Emma's small hand clinging to her neck in fever, of the cheap menthol in their old apartment, of the night she sent that wrong message. One mistake that had pulled them into the house of a dangerous man who now sat crying before a portrait. Do you ever fear sleep? She asked suddenly. I do. Because when I close my eyes, I see bills, debts, prescriptions. I see Mike at the door saying, tomorrow I'll send it. Sleep feels like falling into a bottomless pit. Adrian tilted his head, studied her. Yes, he said at last. I fear sleep because I see this face. He pointed to Julia's photo, walking into the rain and not returning. When I fear, I work. When I'm exhausted, I count the rain. Tonight, I light a candle. Sophia gave a small smile. Tonight, then, I'll listen to the rain with you. The words slipped out, surprising her. Not comfort, not promise, just presence. Adrian didn't answer, but his eyes looked a shade less dark. They sat like that, each with their own loss, sharing a reluctant peace. When the candle burned lower, Sophia rose. I should get back to Emma. Thank you for telling me. Adrian nodded. Rest, he said, his voice softened by a rare degree. I'll stay here a while. Sophia walked away. At the turn into the east suite, she glanced back. Adrian still sat before the portrait, broad shoulders straight, hand resting lightly near the half-filled glass. The candlelight rimmed his cheek with a pale orange halo, softening his outline. Back in Emma's room, Sophia pulled the chair close, jotting 2 lines into her notebook. Rainy night. Heard a story. The rain doesn't feel as frightening now. She set down the pen, curled into her pillow, and let the rain carry her into sleep that felt less like falling. In the side hall, a candle guttered out. But in the mansion's darkness, something else had quietly sparked to life. Not loud, not showy, just a fragile sliver of light finding hold between 2 wounded hearts. Morning sunlight poured through the massive windows, spilling across the long walnut dining table. Sophia sat at one end, a cup of warm milk and a few slices of toast set before her by Rosa. Beside her, Emma, hair still tangled and her pink nightgown wrinkled, stirred a bowl of oatmeal with a tiny spoon, humming to herself. Adrian walked in, wearing a crisp white shirt with sleeves neatly rolled and a tie hanging loose. He rarely joined them for breakfast, but this morning he pulled out a chair across from them and motioned for Rosa to pour him coffee. Sophia tensed, fingers tightening on her spoon. Since that rainy night when she'd seen him before Julia's portrait, her image of him as the ruthless kingpin had blurred. But seeing him here, at the same table, felt strangely intimate and unsettling. Uncle Adrian, want some oatmeal? Emma asked innocently, looking up with her round, rosy face. Adrian raised a brow. Before he could answer, Rosa set a bowl in front of him. He glanced at Sophia, as if gauging her reaction, then picked up the spoon. Emma giggled. I knew you'd eat it. Sophia couldn't help the flicker of a smile. Adrian Castelli, the man notorious enough to order a fleet of SUVs to surround a city block, now sat quietly eating oatmeal, looking awkwardly obedient before a 4-year-old. After breakfast, Emma begged to play with Lego in the living room. She grabbed her mother's hand, and unexpectedly Adrian's too. Both of you play with me. Emma, Mommy's busy, Sophia began, but her daughter's eager eyes broke her resolve. So the 3 of them sat on the thick carpet, surrounded by a rainbow of bricks. Sophia built a small tower, Emma constructed a little house, while Adrian carefully assembled a boat. That looks real, Sophia blurted, then bit her lip. Adrian glanced up, the corner of his mouth tilting. Not quite a smile, but something warmer. I used to fold paper boats when I was little, he said quietly, but they sank too quickly. Emma squealed, hugging the Lego boat to her chest. I'll keep this one afloat. Watching them, Sophia felt a wave of strangeness. In this luxurious room, they looked less like pawns bound by a dangerous deal and more like an ordinary family. That evening, Emma spiked a mild fever. Sophia stayed by her side all night, wiping sweat and changing cool cloths. Exhausted, she slumped at the edge of the bed, the blanket slipping from Emma's shoulder. Another hand replaced it. Sophia looked up to find Adrian standing there, his tall frame casting a shadow over the bed, his hand just withdrawn from the blanket. The warm yellow glow of the night lamp reflected in his deep blue eyes. Yet tonight, they weren't cold. Their gazes locked for long, charged seconds. Sophia's heartbeat thundered, erratic and quick. Adrian had kidnapped her, pulled her into this perilous spiral, and yet his hand just now had been impossibly gentle. She bent down, pretending to adjust Emma's cool cloth, hiding her face, but the heat in her chest didn't fade. The next day, they crossed paths more often than usual. Once in the hallway when Sophia nearly spilled a tray of medicine and Adrian steadied it. Once when they both reached for the same book Emma wanted to read, their hands brushing. Each fleeting touch shifted the air between them. No longer one-sided wariness, but a tension unnamed. Sophia caught herself noticing little things, the way Adrian leaned in to listen when Emma spoke. The way he asked Rosa to prepare softer chicken soup because he knew Emma struggled to swallow. Even the way he let his coffee cool before drinking. And Adrian stopped hiding his gaze. When Sophia bent to lift Emma, or when she laughed softly at something her daughter said, his eyes lingered longer than they should. In them, beyond the usual calculation, glimmered something else. Something more dangerous than any secret. Desire. That night, as Sophia prepared for bed, she caught her reflection in the mirror, flushed. She gave a rueful smile, shaking her head. Foolish. This isn't a time for daydreams. But her heart, despite her reason, had already begun to melt. Loving this story. This story belongs to Soul Stories. If you see it anywhere else, please come back to our official channel to enjoy it in full. In the days that followed, the Castelli estate turned into a miniature medical ward. Dr. Hale announced that Emma's test results were complete. She could undergo a bone marrow transplant within 2 weeks if a suitable donor was found. Adrian personally called the center, scheduled a consultation, and pushed the process forward at a speed rarely seen. Sophia trembled with relief at the news. But before her joy could settle, Adrian stated plainly, "While Emma prepares for transplant, we need to finish things with Michael. The longer he's out there, the more dangerous he is." Sophia stiffened in her chair, her heart plunging. She didn't want to hear his name, much less face him again. But Adrian was right. As long as Mike roamed free, he could sell Adrian's secrets at any moment. Adrian slid a phone across the desk, already fitted with her old SIM. His voice was steady, commanding. "You must be the one to reach out. No one else can draw him out." Sophia swallowed hard, pulse racing. What if he suspects? What if he realizes someone is behind me? He won't. He still believes you hold out a shred of hope for him. Give him what he wants. Money. That night, Sophia sat by Emma's bed, her hands trembling as she typed. The message was short. "Mike, I've scraped together the money. 2,500. But I won't wire it. I only have cash. If you still mean to help Emma, I'll hand it over directly." She reread, erased, and retyped. 7 times. Finally, she hit send, her breath caught in her chest. Less than a minute later, the screen lit up. "Good, tomorrow. 10 a.m., Bluebird Cafe, Riverside. Bring the money. Come alone." Sophia clenched the phone, palms sweating. She knew Bluebird. It was small, crowded, noisy enough to talk without being noticed. Mike had chosen carefully. "Bluebird. 10 o'clock, Adrian repeated, his steel blue eyes glinting under the glow of his laptop. He sat in his study, face carved sharp by the screen light. "He wants you alone." "We'll let him believe that." "You'll be there?" Sophia asked quietly. "I'll be there. Not at your side." His voice dropped, deliberate. "We need him to say it out loud. The money, the deposit contract. Once he does, I'll have enough to finish this." Sophia was silent for a long moment, then nodded. "All right." For Emma. The night before the meeting, Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay beside her daughter, listening to Emma's steady breath, torn between fear and resolve. Mike's image haunted her, that crooked grin, the oily tone of his promises, and the recording Adrian had played, the sneer in his voice as he told an accomplice, "She's still got a little saved for Emma. I'll bleed her dry and vanish. You just prep the exit." Rage burned her eyes hot. In the dark, she whispered, "For you, my love, I'll do it." Morning came clear and bright. Sophia dressed in a pale blue blouse and simple jeans. Casual, inconspicuous. In her handbag lay the envelope of cash Adrian had prepared as bait. Before she left, Adrian instructed, "Sit by the window. The cameras must capture his face. Talk naturally, mention cash in the contract. Don't worry, I'll be close." His gaze lingered on her face longer than necessary. "If anything feels wrong, say lights out. Just once. That's enough. I'll come." Sophia nodded, not trusting herself to meet his eyes. Her heart had already been pounding since the moment he squeezed her shoulder before she left the room. Bluebird Cafe buzzed with its usual morning crowd. The grind of coffee machines blended with a hum of chatter. Sophia chose a table by the window, placed her bag by her feet, and gripped a glass of water with both hands. 10 minutes later, Mike arrived. Same as ever, worn leather jacket, shifty eyes, a half smile that never reached them. He slid into the seat across from her, bringing the stale reek of cigarettes. "Sophie," he muttered quickly, "you brought the money?" Sophia forced herself to be calm, drew the envelope halfway from her bag, and laid it on the table, her hand still on top. "Cash, just like I said." Mike's eyes gleamed as he glanced at it. "Good. Once I have the deposit, Emma's hospital bed is secured. My guys arranged everything. You just have to trust me." Sophia bit her lip, fingers trembling. "I need to be sure." "The contract? Where is it?" He frowned, then gave a syrupy smile. "Don't worry. You'll have it tonight, but without the deposit, there's no bed." Sophia inhaled slowly, then met his gaze. In daylight, she saw the slick deceit clear in his eyes. This man she once called her husband was nothing but a shameless liar. Across the cafe, Adrian sat calmly with an open laptop, though his eyes never left the reflection in the glass. Sophia's steady look, and the envelope she still held tight, was all he needed to know the plan was working. Sophia's voice came out colder than she'd ever heard herself. "Fine, but only hand to hand. Here." Mike's brows drew together briefly, then he shrugged. "All right, Sophie. I always knew you'd cave." He reached for the envelope. Sophia held it back a second longer, forcing him to say the words. "This is the deposit, right?" she pressed. "The hospital bed contract you promised?" Mike, impatient, nodded quickly. "Yes, yes. Now give it here." Sophia released it, her hand ice cold. She knew in that instant every word and gesture had been captured on record. And she knew Adrian, somewhere in the shadows, was ready to bring this deadly game to an end. The glass of water on the table was already half empty, yet Sophia felt no thirst. Her heart pounded in her chest, her hand trembling on her lap from the strain. Mike clutched the envelope, eyes gleaming like a man who'd struck gold. He didn't suspect a thing, too busy counting bills with greedy delight. Sophia drew a deep breath, forcing her voice steady. "Is it enough?" Mike stuffed the envelope inside his jacket and smirked. "Enough. You surprised me, Sophie. Maybe you finally realized that only I can take care of Emma." The words made Sophia's blood boil. She wanted to scream that he was the one exploiting his own daughter's illness for profit. But she remembered Adrian's warning. Don't react. Let him think he's won. She stood, snatching up her bag. "I have to get back to Emma." Mike half reached for her arm, then let go. "Fine. We'll talk later." She turned on her heel, striding quickly out of the cafe. Sunlight flared against her eyes as she stepped outside, and there at the corner stood Adrian. Phone pressed to his ear, eyes cold as ice. Their gazes met as they passed. He didn't speak, only dipped his head slightly. Sophia understood. From this moment, everything was in his hands. As soon as Sophia climbed into Rosa's waiting car at the end of the block, the operation snapped into motion. 3 plainclothes men rose from scattered tables inside the cafe. They were Adrian's security detail. A black SUV rolled forward, blocking the exit. Mike had just stepped outside, hand halfway to his pocket, when 2 men closed in. Cold steel cuffs snapped around his wrist so fast the other patrons barely noticed. "What the hell?" Mike shouted, thrashing. "Let me go!" "I didn't do anything." The team leader pinned his shoulder, voice firm. "Michael Donovan, you are under arrest for embezzlement and betrayal of your employer. Everything you say is being recorded." Mike's eyes darted wildly, searching for help, but every gaze in the cafe slid away. He was shoved into the SUV, the door slamming shut with a heavy finality, like the end of his freedom. Across the street, Sophia sat rigid in Rosa's car, hands clenched. She had witnessed it all. Mike, once her husband, once Emma's father, now dragged away like a criminal. A storm churned inside her. Fury at his attempt to squeeze her dry. Shame for ever trusting him. Pain because Emma still called him Dad. Adrian opened the car door and slid in beside her. He didn't look at her yet, his eyes following the convoy as it disappeared down a side street. It's done. He'll never touch either of you again. Sophia turned, whispering, "What will happen to him?" "Interrogation," Adrian said simply. "He'll surrender the data." In the estate's basement, a makeshift interrogation room had been prepared. Mike sat bound to a metal chair, sweat beading despite the chill. On the table before him lay a small USB drive. "Where is it?" Adrian's voice was calm, level, no need to raise it. Mike's eyes flicked, his grin shaky. "I don't know what you mean. I only—" Adrian tapped a finger against the table. Two guards stepped forward, gripping Mike's shoulders. His breath hitched, words spilling out. In my safe. At the South Warehouse, I swear." Adrian's face didn't change. A curt nod. His men moved. Behind the one-way glass, Sophia watched, shaken. Adrian hadn't needed to shout or strike. The sheer weight of his presence crushed Mike until he cracked. And then, the stolen data, the secret Mike had meant to sell, was recovered intact by the security team. When the USB was sealed inside a secure case, Adrian turned toward the glass. His eyes found hers, still deep, but no longer cold. A steady look, like a promise. It's over. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the image of Mike dragged away, his face pale, his voice hoarse with shouts. She swung between bitter satisfaction and aching sorrow. But glancing at Emma's peaceful sleep beside her, she knew she'd chosen right. Mike, the man who once held her hand in a modest wedding, who once made promises, had left her only scars. And from that wreckage, Sophia understood. The only light left to her was Emma. Outside her door, Adrian's footsteps sounded softly. He didn't enter, only paused a moment before moving on. But Sophia felt his presence like an unseen shield, giving her and Emma their first true rest in years. The next morning, Sophia descended the stairs with a heavy heart. She had thought about Mike all night, him locked in the Castelli estate's basement, surrounded by cold concrete walls. The memory of him screaming, then vanishing into the interrogation room, haunted her. In her mind, there was only one possible ending. Adrian would deal with him in the way underworld men did, make Mike disappear, his body never to be found. The thought clenched her chest. Mike had betrayed her, deceived her, exploited Emma, but he was still the child's father. As she stepped into the living room, Sophia froze. Mike was being escorted toward the door, two guards gripping his arms. But what shocked her more were the uniformed officers waiting outside in the courtyard, police cars lined at the gate. Her eyes widened. "What?" Adrian stood by the window, his tall frame casting a shadow across the polished floor. He didn't look at her, only gave a curt command. "Hand him over, along with all the evidence." The head of security nodded, passing a folder and the USB drive to the inspector. Mike thrashed, shrieking, "You have no right! I'll spill everything." The squad car door slammed shut, swallowing his protests. The convoy rolled out slowly, leaving silence in its wake. Sophia stared at Adrian, stunned. "You didn't kill him?" Only then did he turn. His eyes were icy blue, but his voice calm, as if discussing a business deal. "Killing him would be easy, but his death wouldn't protect anyone. I have other ways to destroy a man, and letting justice work will protect you better." Words failed her. Never had she imagined Adrian Castelli, a name whispered in fear, tied to cold power and shadow dealings, would choose this path. "But I thought you—" She trailed off, unsure what to call him. Kidnapper, kingpin, or savior. Adrian stepped closer, stopping before her. "Michael will face the law, and I, Sophia, don't want you or Emma living with the nightmare that her father vanished without a trace. The price he pays will be public, transparent." Sophia looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tangled emotions, shock, doubt, and finally a quiet respect. Adrian was still intimidating, still cold, but beneath it lay an unyielding principle. Never let senseless violence touch the innocent. In that moment, the image of the ruthless kingpin inside her began to crumble, replaced by another. A man who kept his word, who knew the line between those who deserved judgment and those who needed protection. Sophia exhaled, nodding softly. For the first time, her gaze toward Adrian carried not only fear, but a fragile, tentative trust, real enough to exist. The gleaming corridor of the private hospital echoed with the steady rhythm of doctors' and nurses' footsteps on polished tiles. Sophia sat on a long bench, her hands trembling violently, eyes fixed on the operating room door with its glowing red sign, "In progress." Emma had been taken in nearly an hour earlier. In her thin hospital gown, the little girl had turned back to wave. "Mommy, I'll try my best." That image replayed again and again in Sophia's mind, each memory squeezing her heart tighter. She twisted the edge of her coat, sweat dampening her back despite the icy air conditioning. The entire world had shrunk to that single door and the frantic pounding of her heart. A large, steady hand suddenly covered hers. Sophia startled and looked up. Adrian was seated beside her, his broad frame filling the space. His deep blue eyes held no trace of their usual frost, only an unwavering steadiness. "You're not alone," he said softly, his low voice carrying like a vow. "No one will ever touch you or your daughter again. Trust me." Sophia trembled, but didn't pull away. For the first time, she let her hand rest in his, the same hand that once terrified an entire city, now the only anchor she had. Time crawled, each second stretching into a century. Sophia's gaze locked on the wall clock, the tick of each second impossibly loud. Every time the surgical doors shifted, her heart leapt, only for it to be an assistant stepping in or out. She found herself whispering over and over, "Please save my child. Please." Each time her hand shook, Adrian tightened his grip. He said little, simply sat there, his solid presence like a wall shielding her from the terror threatening to consume her. 2 hours passed, then 3. Sophia felt faint, on the verge of collapse. She lifted her head and caught Adrian's gaze. He had not looked away from the doors once. For the first time, she saw not power, not cold calculation, but the same anxious waiting that consumed her. In that moment, the distance between them seemed to shrink. At last, the red light above the operating room clicked to green. The door swung open. The lead surgeon pulled down his mask, sweat beading his forehead, but eyes alight. "The surgery was successful. The transplant has taken well. Emma will need close monitoring, but the outlook is very good." Sophia shot to her feet, legs trembling. "Truly, truly." The doctor nodded, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "She's a fighter. You can rest easy." Tears burst free. Days of sleepless nights, endless fear of losing her child, all shattered at once. She sobbed uncontrollably, her shoulders shaking. Adrian didn't hesitate. He drew her into his arms, strong, warm, unyielding, holding her as if to keep her from breaking apart. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "Emma is safe now." Sophia pressed her face against his chest, hearing the steady, powerful beat of his heart. In his embrace, she felt not just like a mother who had weathered storms alone, but a woman finally allowed to lean on someone. When she lifted her tear-streaked face, Adrian was still watching her intently. In his eyes, there was no barrier, no roles of kingpin and hostage. Only two people, sharing the same overwhelming relief after so many nights in darkness. Sophia's throat tightened, but her lips curved into a smile Adrian knew he would never forget. In the days after the surgery, the Castelli estate carried a new air entirely. No longer weighed down by schemes and shadows, it was filled with the sounds of life. Emma, who had once lain motionless for weeks in the hospital, was now able to take short runs across the vast garden. Morning sunlight lit her fine hair as her tiny feet skimmed the soft grass. Her clear, bell-like laughter echoed through the grounds, brighter than the birdsong in the old trees. Sophia leaned against the doorway, cradling a cup of tea, her eyes glistening as she watched. Her heart warmed with every smile her daughter gave. For the first time in so long, she could breathe without fear, without worrying that a sudden phone call would bring disaster. Adrian was often there, quiet, never ostentatious. He would appear in the mornings with a basket of warm pastries or stop by in the afternoons with a brand new children's book. Emma would squeal, "Uncle Adrian," clutching the teddy bear he'd given her, proudly showing off her stronger steps each day. From a distance, Sophia watched something strange unfold. The man who had once terrified the city now sat cross-legged on the floor, building blocks with her daughter, patiently reading comic strips line by line. And he didn't seem awkward. On the contrary, those blue eyes held a rare joy, a joy that was genuine. One evening, Rosa set the dinner table out on the terrace. Candlelight glowed, and the breeze stirred the rose bushes, releasing a soft fragrance. Sophia sat across from Adrian, with Emma between them, happily gnawing on a piece of crispy toast. "This is the best dinner ever," Emma exclaimed, clumsily raising her glass of orange juice to clink against Adrian's wine glass. Sophia laughed, while Adrian simply raised a brow and solemnly toasted. "A toast to our little princess." In that moment, Sophia met his gaze. His eyes shone in the candlelight, no longer cold, no longer distant, but warm, tender enough to make her heart lurch. She quickly looked away, hiding behind the excuse of cutting her meat, though her cheeks burned hot. Later that night, after Emma had fallen into a deep sleep, Sophia remained in the living room, switching on the old record player. A low, mellow jazz tune filled the room. She sat quietly, eyes drifting somewhere far away. Adrian entered, a glass of wine in hand. He stood for a moment, then sat beside her. Neither spoke. They simply listened together. When the song faded, Sophia exhaled softly. Her voice came thin, fragile, yet resolute. "Maybe. It's time for me to go." Adrian's shoulders tensed, though he didn't turn. His hand tightened around the glass, eyes fixed on the dark beyond the window. Sophia went on, steadying her tone. "Emma needs a normal life. She can't stay here forever. I I don't want to rely on you too long." Each word cut her inside. For here, for the first time in years, she had found peace. But reason urged her to leave, before her heart strayed too far. Silence filled the room. The vinyl crackled softly before another track began, but neither of them heard it. Adrian wanted to say, "Stay," but his lips pressed shut. He had already lost one woman to weakness. He would not impose again. Sophia wanted to whisper, "I don't want to leave." Instead, she turned away, hiding her tear-brimmed eyes. They sat side by side, close enough for their shoulders to touch, yet with hearts still oceans apart. The record ended, leaving only the pounding of two restless hearts, each caught in its own silent struggle. Morning sunlight stretched across the green lawns, dewdrops on the rose petals sparkling like crystal. Birds chirped brightly, heralding a new day. Emma darted about the garden, her tiny curls bouncing in the light, her laughter ringing clearer than the song of the sparrows. Sophia stood by the window, watching her daughter. But in her gaze there was more than relief. There was weight, a heaviness pressing down. She had already begun packing their belongings, preparing to leave the estate. Adrian had done more than she had ever dared hope. He had saved Emma's life, given them safety. Yet Sophia knew she couldn't stay here forever. This wasn't her world. Emma ran inside, wrapping her small arms tightly around her mother's waist, panting, "Mommy, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to leave Uncle Adrian." Sophia froze, her heart aching. The little girl looked up with wide, glistening eyes full of attachment. "He tells me stories, plays Lego with me. I want to stay here forever." Sophia couldn't find words. She only held her daughter tighter, stroking her hair, her heart tangled in turmoil. That afternoon in the living room, neatly packed suitcases sat in the corner. Adrian stepped in. One glance was enough for him to understand. His sharp blue eyes flickered with something unspoken, though his face remained composed. "You're leaving." His voice wasn't a question, it was a fact. Sophia drew a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'm truly grateful for everything you've done for me and Emma. But we can't stay here forever." For the first time, Adrian moved closer, his shadow falling across her. His blue eyes seemed to look straight into her soul. His voice was husky but firm. "I don't want you to go. I don't want to be just a protector. I want you and Emma to stay. I want to be part of a family. Sophia's heart pounded wildly. These words came from the man who once terrified her, and now they sounded like a vow, a plea born of something real. Do you even know what you're saying? Sophia whispered, her voice trembling. You and us, we come from two different worlds. I'm afraid that Adrian fell silent for a moment, then slowly placed his hand over hers. Sophia, I lost one family. I won't lose another. I'm not forcing you, but this time, I'm choosing to fight for what matters most. Her eyes brimmed with tears. In his gaze, she no longer saw the cold cruelty of a kingpin, but the longing of a man who yearned for a home. For years, she had lived only for Emma, but now for the first time, she wondered if she could open her heart again. The room was silent, broken only by the racing heartbeats of two people. Suddenly, Emma ran in, wrapping her little arms around her mother and then around Adrian too. Mommy, I don't want to leave Uncle. Can we stay here? Sophia pulled her daughter close, tears slipping down her cheeks. Adrian's hand came to rest gently on both of them. The embrace, strange yet filled with warmth, melted Sophia's heart. She lifted her eyes to Adrian. This time she didn't look away. She gave a small nod. We'll stay. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, bathing the three of them in a golden glow. Emma laughed brightly, clinging to them both. In that moment, there were no shadows, no heavy past, only a new beginning, where a family was pieced together from broken fragments. At last, a true dawn had come for them.